Hi students, welcome to the final lecture for week 12 for MGMT 11109 Introduction to Management. We're going to talk about integrating the CVF framework and providing an integrated approach to your management skills that you've worked on and competencies you've worked on over the last 12 weeks, and provide then a guideline or a road to mastery of those skills and how they are combined and worked together to become an excellent or best practice manager. Before we do that, I'd just like to have a few words about Assessment 2. Assessment 2 is really about thinking about your writing school and the problems that your writing school has. In that way, the assessment is flexible in that you get to determine what you write about from the last 12 weeks of study. So you get to determine the problems, and hopefully those problems that you highlight will be the solutions that you enjoyed reading about. So what can the solutions be? Well, they can be any theory of management, any principle or concept that's been discussed in the last 12 weeks. For example, we talked about Baldridge's criteria for excellence, and that talks about surveying your environment to find out what customers, suppliers, governments, competitors think about the service that you're offering, and it allows the manager to take off any blinkers they might have about any problems that are in their environment. And it's an open, honest and transparent way to proceed with your management, knowing what the problems are in your environment. So Baldridge's criteria for excellence is a great tool to use, and it's a excellent way to proceed with your management. So Baldridge's criteria, I would determine that a principle of management, and that will be very helpful. So a theory of management might be Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you've got staff who are demotivated, then you might utilize the learning from Maslow's hierarchy of needs to motivate those people. Obviously, you need to be aware of who that person is that you're trying to motivate, what their needs are, what needs they've had supplied previously. And with those needs identified, you can supply that need, and they will feel very positive towards the goals that you have set, and will proceed with achieving those goals with excellence in mind. So that's really the structure of the assessment where most marks will be scored. Your ability to critically analyse the problem and look for solutions that have been discussed in the last 12 weeks. If you've been keeping up to lectures, if you've been doing 12 hours per week, if you have been completing the competencies in the tutorials, you will have a handle on those solutions, and you will know how to provide those solutions and match them to a problem. Obviously, then there's this question of writing recommendations, which become the conclusion to the report. And these are really 2 or 3 sentences, each recommendation, saying what the manager should do, or what the manager should be given permission to do in the current writing school to achieve excellence and best practice management. So let's head on with week 12 and the final lecture for the course. So what we're going to be looking at is the agenda for this topic. So integration and behavioural complexity we'll talk about, how master managers see the world, the leveraging power of lift, how you can lift your employees up and how important that is to be a manager who's enthusiastic and excited about the task, and then how you will have people buy into that excitement, and how you can make sure that people pursue your goals as a manager with excellence in their hearts, and how management is a constant journey. It's not like there's a management set of procedures you go through and you can say, right, well, I'm done with management now, I've done all the management I need to do. Management is an ongoing journey that you'll go on with your business, with your organizations, and it's something that never comes to an end. People always will require management, goals will have to be set, change will have to be undertaken, and all of these processes mean that it's a never-ending road to mastering management. We're going to have a look at the behavioural complexity of people, and also how you might apply a strategy on Monday for a particular staff member, and how that strategy might not work for them on a Wednesday. And that's because there are moods and emotions and attitudes and job satisfaction involved. And people are not the same on one day as they are on the next. They're not like a computer. And if you click on the Word icon, it's always going to open up a copy of Word. People are very much more complex with that, and so is their behaviour. And we're going to break down how a master manager or an excellent manager, best practice manager, uses systems thinking and uses paradoxical thinking to achieve great results with their subordinates and with their staff and inside the organisations in which they work. So the next thing we're going to have a look at is the CVF framework, but we're going to break it down into a positive zone and a negative zone. And I particularly like this graphic here. We have a manager who is blindfolded, happily walking along, moving along, but little is he aware that he's going to walk over a cliff very shortly. Managers who have blinkers on, who aren't aware of their environment, will certainly be subject to this kind of fall. So let's have a look at the negative zones and the positive zones for each of the 4 quadrants that we've discussed previously in the CVF framework. And that's collaborate, create, compete, and control. So a master manager inside these zones, that's the white area of the target type of symbol that you'll see there, is for the create sector is creative, clever, and envisions change. They're also politically astute and acquire resources for their organisation. But a master manager who is not working to optimum capacity might be in the negative zone, and that's where we can have managers who might be unrealistic or impractical, and they waste energy on not so important things. They can also be opportunistic, overly aspiring, and disrupts the continuity of the organisation. All of these things are bad outcomes from managers who are unqualified in these particular areas of the CVF framework and create negative outcomes. Obviously, the most dangerous manager is the manager at the centre of the model, someone who is unaware, someone who is unskilled, and someone who is unpolished. Those managers create the most destruction. So you can see from breaking down that model, you can start to understand the managers who might be termed impractical dreamers, the oppressive egotist, the rigid bureaucrat, and the permissive pushover. Now, students in the lecture asked me what an egotist was, and an egotist is someone who's very concerned with their goals and with their achievement within the organisation and having that reflected back to them. They're not so concerned with the goals of others, and we know that from motivation theory and what we did in week 6, that if you are going to be motivating people, you have to be very aware of their needs and their goals. So the oppressive egotist is not going to be someone who can really motivate others to succeed. They also asked me what rigid meant. Well, rigid is like steel, it's unbending. But if we had plywood, that's quite bendable, it's quite pliable. So a rigid bureaucrat is someone who sticks to the rules even when the rules don't make logical sense. And obviously a rigid bureaucrat in that control sector is going to do a lot of damage as a manager. Certainly not someone who's going to make the organisation more efficient or effective. They're actually going to be a drag on the success of the organisation. So impractical dreamer, the oppressive egotist, the rigid bureaucrat, and the permissive pushover, all types of managers that will not succeed, not achieve the road to mastery that we've been talking about. So if we break this model down and then think about the organisation that can be created by these types of managers, we have the tumultuous anarchy, the oppressive sweatshop, the frozen bureaucracy, and the irresponsible country club. So all of these types of environments can be created, these organisations can be created by managers who are not comfortable in their role as being a manager. They're either created by unclear values and goals, or a counteractive values and goals to what the organisation is pursuing. So if you have a manager working against the goals of the organisation, these are some outcomes that can occur. And there's certainly, if we take the oppressive sweatshop, and we have a manager that concentrates on perpetual exhaustion of its staff, where they constantly have to be exerted. There's never any time to stop and celebrate successes or wins, where they put a high degree on human exhaustion. These might not be good goals or outcomes to achieve with your staff. I think just it's common sense that people who work in that environment will leave. That will lead to a high attrition. Undiscerning regulation and pursuing blind dogma. This is also something that's characteristic of the oppressive sweatshop. What is needed to guide the organisation away from that particular model is directions, goals, clarity and planning, productivity and accomplishment and impact. These things are what are going to drive the road to mastery for that type of organisation. So if we look at the summary evaluation matrix, so this brings the entire course together. We've looked at human relations, and then it has its directive word that sums up the entire model as collaborate. The open systems model, its directive or adjective really that drives the system is to create. The rational goal model, its directive is to compete. And the internal process model, its adjective or the driving word there is its internal processes of control that really succeed in those environments. So that's just a summary of where we've come to. It sort of was one of the first slides that we encountered when we did the CVF framework back in week 1, and it's something that we end on now to show you that we've crossed over all those theories of management, principles and procedures, all of those concepts that we've covered. I've done a quick tally and it's come to about 83 different principles, concepts and models of management and theories of management that you've been exposed to over the last 12 weeks. More than enough material to draw on for your assignment. So we need to understand this thing about human beings is they're not the same. They're not the same 1 hour to the next. They have moods and emotions. They have cognitive complexity. So the way they think about things changes all the time. The way that they think about things on Monday is not the same way they think about things on Tuesday. There's a behavioural repertoire that people can draw on. So their behaviour is difficult to predict. And changeable, and it's one of the most complex areas of management, is that you have to think on your feet as a manager in what is the correct approach, and you have to not give up on your role as manager. You might have tried 3 things, but a good manager will always look for a 4th strategy that might be successful. And there has to be this cognitive complexity and this behavioural repertoire lead to behavioural complexity. This is the thing we can't predict about human beings, how they're going to behave from one moment to the next. But we have an arsenal of solutions that we can draw on to harness that employee and to make sure that that employee achieves the goals that you've set and works towards them in an excellent manner so that they're trying to achieve excellence on your behalf. You can't do the work for them. You're far too busy being a manager. But what you can do is harness the abilities of other people to achieve these areas for the organisation and to achieve these goals. And obviously, very important in all of that is goal setting and making sure that these goals have buy-in from the staff members involved. You can't possibly get them to achieve your goals if they haven't had a say in setting the goals up themselves. And I'll give it, and I'll talk to you. Obviously, there's a question there about what theory that draws from. You need to have a look at path goal theory from week 6. So seeing like a master manager and thinking in terms of systems, you need to be aware that as a manager you can only see parts of the system at any one time. There are certain things that are hidden from you in the environment. Even with your best endeavours, you might not be able to see all of the information that you need to make a decision. So obviously a manager is aware that there are some information that's lacking and some information that they'd like before they make the decision. But decisions need to be made in a timely manner. and there might not be time to draw all that information and data together in a coherent way so that you can make the right decision and have all perfect information at your fingertips when you make that decision. So what you need to understand with systems thinking is how your decision is likely to impact on others, and particularly how it might impact on not only the person who is originally involved in the decision, but others in the organisation. So there's a diagram there that talks about how A makes a decision, it impacts on B, that also impacts on C, and again returns to impact on A. So you need to have an idea of the decision that you're making and how it will affect others in the system. If you do that, then that will guide you to make the right decisions most of the time. Sometimes you will make incorrect decisions as a manager, but then that creates opportunities for you to solve further problems. All right, seeing like a master manager and harnessing this thing called paradoxical thinking. So if we go back to paradox mentioned in lecture 1 and lecture 2, and we think about paradox as following logic to its illogical end, and by that I mean you can have a paradox where you might follow two different types of thinking and they'll both give you a logical result, but each result is different. And that paradox comes about and affects how managers make decisions. But what you have to do is harness and be creative in what you understand the paradox to be. So it is possible to achieve both faster and better. It might be a thinking system where there's only one or the other, like a binary type of system where you can only have one or the other. Management is really about achieving a host of goals simultaneously. So what's really important there is for you to look at how you can achieve win-win situations faster and better. These are quite possible outcomes for a master manager to achieve. It lists better and cheaper, cheaper and more innovative, innovative and yet still being familiar. These things are going to be the types of challenges that you are set by your senior managers to come up with options where both parties win, where paradox might be built into the system, but you're comfortable with dealing with that paradox as a manager, comfortable with dealing with the fact that you don't have all the information, and that still allows you to be creative, that still allows you to make decisions. It doesn't solidify you or cement you in so that you can't move because you feel I don't have the right tools. You have to overcome that as a master manager and deal with paradox. Another thing to think about to become a master manager is, are you imprisoned by your comfort zone? So are there only certain parts of the CVF framework you feel comfortable with? Are you a good leader? Perhaps you think of yourself in terms of not being a good leader. Well, you'll have to overcome that to be a master manager. To be a master manager involves good planning, good organisation, good control, and good leadership. If leadership is something that you don't have, it's not fine to say, I'm a master manager who can't lead. You have to develop these skills within yourself, and getting out of your comfort zone and pushing yourself into unfamiliar territory is one way to combat these weaknesses that you have. So if you feel that you're not a good leader, then what you need to do is put yourself in situations where you can practice that skill, where you can work with that skill and develop that skill in a more meaningful way, so that you can say to yourself, yes, I have these suite of skills as a manager. I'm good at planning, I'm good at leading, I'm good at organising, I'm good at control. And it's a never-ending road to mastery. It says, don't forget to look for and eliminate your own excuses for resisting change. So change is inbuilt into our systems in management. In a globalised world, change is the only thing that is certain. So you'll have to overcome your resistance to change if you have a high resistance to change, and establish that you might be working against the organisation even though you're trying to promote change. This is very important that you eliminate, and eliminate means shut down, exclude, stop from having life. You must move that on, so that you know that you're aware of yourself and aware of what you're trying to achieve. Once you do that, if you understand yourself really well, you'll be on that road to mastery. You can't be working against the organisation's goal as a manager. It won't be a tolerable situation, and you'll find that you will eventually leave the organisation if your goals are not in sync. So, steps to mastery. Some of you may have come into this course with some experience. Maybe some of you have done some academic studies involving management before, and that might put you as an advanced beginner. But we start with this model with a novice, where it's really important to learn the facts and the rules. Then we have an advanced beginner who develops competence and then proficiency in carrying out the skills of management, way up to a level of expertise. And when you have expertise in management, you are able to adapt to constant change and intuitively act upon different situations. And I really like that word, intuitive. It talks about gut feelings that are necessary in management. You sort of have a feeling that this is the way to go, that this is what you should do. It's really important co-opting people into that as well. If you can do that well, then you can be a master manager. But a lot of this comes down to intuition, but it is formalized and informed by models, concepts, theories, and principles of management. So a final reflection: how can you build on your strengths and still stay out of the negative zone? See the big picture without losing track of the details. Accept ideas from other ideas while living your personal values, and lift people up instead of bringing them down. I think that's a wonderful point to end on for this course, that as a manager you must be enthusiastic, you must be excited to achieve the goals of the organisation. You must bring people up to your level of excitement. They must share your enthusiasm. If you go to work and you're feeling downtrodden, or you're not feeling positive, then you will infect your subordinates or employees with that. Management is about bringing people up and people achieving their goals. As a manager, you must do that. You must be able to be enthusiastic. You must be able to be exciting to be around. It must be infectious, and you must work hard to make sure by monitoring your performance that you are doing well at achieving this. So, my final advice: build on your strengths and stay out of the negative zone. See the big picture, don't lose track of the details. However, accept ideas from other people who have great ideas and bring those in, give them credit for that, and live your personal values. That's really important. And finally, most importantly, bring people up. Make sure people are excited to work with you. Make sure people are enthusiastic to achieve your goals, and to achieve your goals with excellence in their heart. It's been wonderful working with all of the students. I've been in contact with many of you over the term, and it's been wonderful. You have taught me new things during this course, which is something I've really enjoyed. New research that you've come across, and I've enjoyed those conversations I've had with students where they've taught me things. I hope I've taught you something. I'd like you to please complete the Have Your Say survey as soon as possible so that we can get feedback. It's kind of like Baldridge's excellence criteria. Surveying your environment, seeing how students, customers feel, and then incorporating those changes into the way that the course is developed. If you've got positive things to say too, that's always nice as well. We know then what to keep because students are enjoying that. All right, take care. I look forward to reading all of your assessments. All right, bye-bye.